All right. Happy Sunday. Let's start seated. We're going to have a ball. We're going to have a blanket and a wall handy this morning. Did have that concern. So just finding that comfy seat where your spine can get nice and vertical. Yeah, clarity can settle in. We can find some nice fluidity in our breath. Think about how you are exchanging that inhale and exhale side of the breath, whether it is through the mouth or through the nose, and what's most advantageous for you there. Let's just give ourselves about 30 more seconds just to fully settle in. There is this king who has requested all of the kingdom's blacksmiths come to the round table for a special project. The next time that you exhale, allow the chin to tuck down to the sternum. And as the chin kind of cradles in there, give a little lateral movement. And as the head and neck are starting to change their angle, think about what you can do with the expansion of this anterior shoulder girdle. So a retraction of the humeral heads. And just feeling how the lateral musculature, the elevating musculature of the cervical spine responds to not only the movement, but the broadening of the shoulder girdle. And then eventually we'll bring our head back to neutral and lift our chin back to neutral and see if we can settle into that space. So that transitionatory musculature between the shoulders and neck, and we grant that space. And then let's turn the gaze towards the right. And then back to neutral. And we'll turn the gaze towards the left. And we'll come back to neutral. And real quick, let's just inhale and lift the chin towards the ceiling. Looking for a little anterior throat expansion, a little balancing of the cervical spine musculature. We'll bring our chin back to neutral. Let's grab our blanket here. We'll take that blanket from a shelf fold, blanket or towel from a shelf fold, and we'll just go hot dog fold. And that's going to come down next to us. And we'll extend our legs out into staff. Anytime we're in staff, right, we really want to make sure that we're engaging that upper abdominal region so that we get the verticality and the neutrality of the posterior. And then from that, let's just think about slowly lowering ourselves down to the mat, really keeping that core engagement. As much as this is a recharge class, we are still working on our spinal integrity. First time we hit the floor, so a little opportunity just to feel the back against neutral. And then when you feel ready, we'll inhale to bring the knees to a bent position if they're not already. And press up into a bridge just high enough to slide the blanket underneath the sacrum. We really want to have kind of the top edge of the sacrum. So think about where the sacrum and the bottom vertebrae of the lumbar unionize as our edge of the blanket. Even if you don't have a ton of density there, that's okay. We're going to be dynamic in this. So don't feel like, oftentimes I'm telling you to push a little bit towards the middle for more density. Not necessarily true this time. So with an exhale, think about releasing the belly down so that we get some flexion in the spine. And then with an inhale, let's draw back towards that neutral arch. Neutral arch, probably an oxymoron, but think about coming into the more natural arch, better way to describe that. And then exhale and really think about letting the back release, almost like you're lifting the sacrum here. So we're articulating the spine in a cat-cow shape. We're just doing it upside down. Inhale, we take the arch. Really draw and exaggerate the belly arch. And reverse into that exhale. And just move through this a couple more times. Really thinking about the way that your spine is articulating and how we're going through that extension and flexion. With the idea of mobilizing as much as possible and using the blanket kind of as a soft fulcrum point to help that mobilization. And then the next time that you exhale and release, pull the knees up towards the torso. So this should accentuate our shape. So we should be in a space where the tailbone more or less is kind of fulcrumed into the lift, forced into the lift. And we get that flexion into the spine, into the lumbar, that's met with the neutrality of the mat. And then let's inhale and just drop the feet. And here we're more or less staying neutral across the abdominals. And then exhale and retract. Give yourself that squeeze. Inhale and release the feet. When you complete the edge of the inhale cycle, we go back to the exhale. We'll pull the thighs in. Let's do this a couple more times with our own pacing and our own breath. This is just exaggerating that cat-cow articulation of the vertebrae, right, next to one another, and of the lumbar focused. Kind of the key here is when we go into extension, the back side of the vertebrae get that spacing and that separation. When we go into flexion. And then when we go into extension, we start to peel towards that front side expansion. And so we're just thinking about how we can move and manipulate those vertebrae so that both sides of those supportive discs get some relief from pressure, get to experience the space that we want to offer them. Next time that the feet come down, pull that blanket out from underneath us and release the tailbone back into neutral. Think about the rate of respiration here. You can slow that down. There's a lot of movement for our recharge class, even if the movement was quite small. If your heart rate has responded to that movement. And if it has, can we downregulate towards ease? And then when you're ready, we're going to let our knees fall to one side or the other. And from here, we're going to press ourselves up and find our way to a wall. Looking to accentuate the opening work we've done. Kick our legs straight up into a traditional wall-supported inversion. Tailbone tucked. And really wanting to experience lumbar neutrality. And once you get there, let's take our arms out towards cactus. Palms up. If cactus doesn't allow you to get the back of the hands resting against the mat, lower the elbows down and even start to unwind the 90-degree bend of the elbows until you feel like your hands are resting and supported on the floor. So if that external rotation of the shoulders is just too much this morning, soften so that you're at ease. And then really tune in deeply to the way the blood is flowing in the body. And so this king brings all of the blacksmiths in. And he tells them that he wants each of them to create the finest shield they can. Because each of them will be compensated for their work. But the one who creates a shield that is impenetrable, that can resist a sword, a spear, an explosion, a mace, shall be rewarded with more gold than they can store. And so they all go back to their shops. They pick out their finest material, sharpen their tools, and get to work. The next time that you exhale, let's extend the arms overhead towards the space behind us, not towards the ceiling. And see if you can feel that subscapular musculature start to pull vertically. So we're looking to experience some length in that shoulder shelf. And then relax the arms back to cactus or a more relaxed version of cactus if that is better for your shoulders this morning. And so for months, these blacksmiths are working on producing this shield. In many ways, this is an opportunity to kind of demonstrate their work and to compare their work to their peers. So each of them knowing that is certainly focused on producing the best shield possible. It's something the king had thought about and expected. The next time that you inhale, let's bring our hands and elbows together and interlace the fingers here. Press the forearms and elbows together as much as is possible. And as you exhale, extend the arms overhead. Don't allow the forearms to break. Don't allow the elbows to break. Don't allow the hands to break. So you're only able here to lift what that lateral chain allows for. And then when it feels right, relax the arms back out towards cactus. See if you can feel that shoulder girdle melt just a little bit more as we've worked some posterior space, some lateral space. Remember to continually check in with your rate of respiration. With the next exhale, let's extend both arms overhead towards the space behind us, not towards the ceiling. Try to get that length, right? A vertical pull, even though we're in a horizontal shape. And when it feels like you can't possibly create any more space, relax your arms back towards cactus. When it feels appropriate for you, let's inhale the hands and forearms together. And this time we're going to take an eagle wrap. So right hand coming closest to the body, tucking into that left elbow crease. If backs of the hands is what we can do, let's stay there. If you can wrap the hands into that full eagle, so palm to palm, let's do that. And then with an exhale, let's take the elbows and really lift them towards the space behind us, not towards the ceiling. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll relax the arms back to cactus. Little asymmetry across the shoulder girdle here. See what that does to the sacrum balance, and think about tucking the sacrum evenly bilaterally into that corner space. Next time that you exhale, extend both arms towards the space behind you, not towards the ceiling. Try to get that vertical length, softening of the musculature that maybe starts to manifest into vertebrae space eventually. And then exhale and relax the arms back towards cactus or a modified version of it. Checking on your rate of respiration. Eventually, the king sends out a call. 30 days until all of the shields will be tested. And so the work, the focus, and the effort, the energy spent starts to expand exponentially. We'll bring the elbows, forearms, palms together. We're going eagle wrap side two. So the left elbow in front of the right. And then we'll wrap those hands again. If the backs of the hands is best, wonderful. If the palms work, wonderful. And then we'll lift the elbows towards the space behind us. Settle into that. Really feel that lateral wrap into your anterior expansion. And get into that pec minor and even pec major sometimes with this lift. And then when you feel balance left to right, whenever that is, we'll relax our arms back towards cactus. We'll just settle into that. Next time that you exhale, let's extend both arms overhead towards the space behind you, not towards the ceiling. Get this last vertical grasp. Really think about this elongation of this L shape you're in. And then point the toes towards the ceiling, really elongating that anterior chain. And then relax. Shoulders coming into a place where they feel comfortable. We'll give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's bend both knees. Let the blood flow kind of normalize in the legs for a moment. As the knees bend, think about how the compression here neutralizes the lumbar, and how if you stay with the tailbone tucked into that shape, we're really recreating bottom squat. But we're also really working on a flat, neutral lumbar alignment. And then let's let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels best. And we'll press ourselves back up into a seat and return to our mat if we've left it. Let's grab our hot dog folded blanket or towel. So we're the amount of times I do that. So it looks like this, and then we're just going to lay that down, running the length of our mat so that we can lower our spine onto it. And line yourself up so that the sacrum is bumping up against the bottom of the blanket and your glutes are anchored on the mat. And then let's lower ourselves down here. Oh. If you get here and the torso geometry is longer than the towel or blanket, you can unfold and go long ways. You can also allow your head to rest below the spinal column, which I'm doing. But if you wanted to make that other adjustment, just so you can see it, you can take length and then go hot dog style. So just the right choice for your spine from sacrum to skull. Palms up ideally here so that we continue this shoulder work we've done. Little external, passive external rotation, neutral external rotation. And then let's just breathe into this shape. Low back bend, spinal column support, body at ease. So a month later, all of these blacksmiths arrive at the palace with their shields, and there are some real monstrosities. People definitely put their own unique flair. There are shields with these huge, heavy borders of steel, and there are unique shapes and unique welds, unique riveting patterns. And it is very clear that a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of energy has gone into each of these creations. And all of the shields are lined up to be field tested. The king calls upon his strongest knight, picks up his sharpest sword, and walks one by each shield, taking his most vicious slash. One by one, the sword clangs against these shields. And a few of them fail the first test. And the second test comes, and it's a spear, a different type of sharp instrument, different energy force. And one by one, the spear is thrust towards these shields. And because of the different energy forces here, some of the shields with the huge weighted rims that stood up so well to the swords, more blunt force, are pierced by the point of the spear and are removed from the competition. We'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here on this blanket prop. it feels appropriate for you, utilize an inhale to bend both of our knees. And we'll just find our way off of this prop so that we can remove it from beneath us. Settle back down into neutrality here. And let's let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide for a moment. Won't be here super long without a support underneath us, but a little medial line expansion, something to settle into. And so after the spear, mace is called upon. This big spiked ball on the end of a chain. The knight swings this ball at the shields, and several of them crumple underneath the force. And they're removed. There's only a handful of shields left. And they're run through these traditional weaponry tests until there's only two. One very traditional looking shield. And one very untraditional looking shield. With layers of different materials. Vertical and horizontal bars woven in. And both of these shields look remarkably like they did to start the competition. The king comes down and he congratulates both of them for their craftsmanship. Next time that you inhale, let's bring our knees together. And then pull the right thigh in towards the torso. Let the hands interlace over the shin or on the hamstring, whatever feels most impactful for you. And then extend your left leg. And as the left leg extends, start to take some more pressure into that right hand and start to work that right knee out towards the right edge of your mat so that we're getting more medial openness while keeping this anterior compression. And then we'll pull with the left hand towards the medial line so we come towards that sternum space. And you'll note how the anterior hip crease sensations change here. You may even capture some pressure into the psoas. The experience may be relatively intense. And then we'll release that right foot and inhale to mirror with the left knee. Some asymmetry across the anterior hip crease. potentially some asymmetry in how the sacrum sits. And let's pull that left knee in. And then once you feel like you've captured that compression, we extend the right leg. And then we can start with the left arm to energize that left knee out towards the edge of the mat. Fluid, easy breaths here. And then back in towards that medial line, right hand energy here. Noticing the change in anterior compression location. Getting more space. And then eventually releasing the left knee, mirroring with the right, letting your arms find cactus and bringing some dynamic sway into the knees. And so, with the king congratulating these two and talking about their shields, he's commenting on the uniqueness of the first. How these steel bars have really brought a new dimension into shield making. And the second shield is so traditional. The king kind of asks how such a traditional shield could possibly have made it this far. And the blacksmith says, this is what I do. I selected the best material. I chose the best template for that material. I put forth the best effort in crafting and manipulating that material. And in doing so, I've created the best shield of ever existed. Next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them settle there. And so the king kind of chuckles. He says, we'll see about that. And the final test is brought forth. The shields are going to have to withstand an explosion. And so this explosive material is packed full right next to the shields, eventually detonated. And the unique shield of constructed vertical and horizontal bars, peels apart in all directions from the blast radius. On the traditional shield, sure enough, withstands the explosion as if nothing happened. The king, true to his promise, paid each and every blacksmith for their time, for their effort, and loaded the winning blacksmith up with gold in exchange for the shield he created. And from that day forward, the king carried that shield everywhere he went. king went to meetings, he had the shield on his arm. When he ate, he had the shield resting on his seat. When he went to bed, he went to bed with the shield resting on his chest. When he went to battle, the shield protected him and kept him safe. And time again, the shield did exactly as it was designed to do. It protected him. It kept him safe. It made him feel invulnerable. Because with it, he was. We'll give ourselves about 50 more seconds here on this first side. One thing about that invulnerability, probably the first thing that popped into your mind, was that without it, he would be vulnerable. It was the first thing that popped into the king's mind as well. And so he never let it leave his side. In fact, if he ever set it down, he felt that vulnerability instantaneously. And so years later, he went back to the blacksmith and asked for a favor. He wanted an addition to the shield, a weld of 2 bands that would affix relatively permanently the shield to his arm. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees back to neutral. And we'll give a little dynamic sway here, just a little exploration of what is right now within our body. And then we'll let the knees fall over to that second side. And so the blacksmith did as the king requested. He added 2 bands forged from the same material, built with the same strength, with the same durability. And so the shield was set on the king's arm. And those momentary fleeting experiences of vulnerability disappeared. And so when a rival kingdom called and asked for a meeting, the king had no hesitation. He sat upon his horse and rode off. He was asked if he wanted accompaniment. He said it wasn't needed. The king knew, as did the king's enemies, that Attacking him was useless. And so he rode off towards a distant kingdom by himself, his trusted horse, his impenetrable shield. Once again, check in with your rate of respiration. See if there are tweaks, adjustments that can bring you more into a state of ease here. We'll give ourselves about 90 more seconds. On side two. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Settle in here. The body soften. Ask yourself if there's anything that you might desire or could possibly benefit from prior to Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that to ourselves now. If you have everything you need, if you're ready for some full and complete stillness, let's find our way into a shape where we can appreciate it. And eventually, let's settle into our version of Shavasana this morning. And so as the king rode off in the direction of this distant kingdom, he went through rolling hills, fields, forests. He was in the beautiful cliff overlooking the sea. As the storm rolled in, the wind started to whip around. And a lightning strike occurred just in front of his horse. Normally temperate horse bucked wildly and threw him into the ocean below. We'll start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes. And he landed in the water with a crash. Moving into your wrists and your ankles, elbows, knees, shoulders, and hips. The water was cold and shocking. Neck and head, jaw, eyes, tongue. He tried to swim, but the weight of the shield on his arm made it impossible. It pulled him deeper and deeper into the depths. Eventually, the entirety of our body will move. We'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in. We'll find our way back into a seat. And this seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. And with your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. For the course of the next 7 days, can you ensure that the things you cling to for safety are not able to bring you down? See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. I will be back tomorrow night to move. Appreciate the heck out of you. Love you. Have a beautiful day or week or 2 weeks. Mwah. See you soon.